Welcome to flip number 2, prisms versus pyramids. Here's a hilarious joke for you. Get it? Pure left, mid, pure right, pyramid. Yeah, I thought you might like that. All right, so first let's think about what is the difference between these two types of solids. Prisms on the left and pyramids on the right. Take a second, pause the video, and jot down a couple things that you notice. Okay, so hopefully you found a couple things that differentiate prisms and pyramids. Let's define that a little bit further. So a prism is a 3D figure that has two congruent parallel bases. Let's break that first piece down. Two congruent parallel bases. So in a 3D solid, the bases are the polygons, the shapes that are on either side. So this prism has two hexagons as its bases. They're congruent because they're exactly the same. Congruent means the same. And they're parallel because just like two parallel lines would never intersect, these two-dimensional figures are on planes that never intersect. They don't cross each other. So a prism has two congruent parallel bases. If you look at the other prisms here, this one has triangles, and this one has squares. Or maybe it's a rectangle. Okay, the second thing that makes prisms prisms is that they have rectangular lateral faces. Lateral faces means side faces. A face is any flat part of the prism, and so when we're talking about the lateral faces, we're talking about the sides. You can see how on this prism, the sides are a rectangle. And this is a two-dimensional drawing, of course, of the three-dimensional prism. That's why they're a little slanted. But each one of these sides is a rectangle. Finally, prisms are named according to the base. So whatever the base is, we name the prism that. So this prism down at the bottom has a hexagon for a base, and so it is called a hexagonal prism. Hexagon has 6 sides. The prisms up here are named either a rectangular prism or sometimes a square prism. I'll call it a rectangular prism. Remember that a square is just a special type of rectangle. And this prism is called a triangular prism. Okay, so now let's look at the pyramids. You can probably already guess what the names of those pyramids are, but first let's define in a little more detail what makes a pyramid a pyramid. So a pyramid only has one base. If you look at those figures, each one of them only has one polygon at its base. In addition to the base, on the opposite side from the base is what is called an apex. That's where the sides meet in a point. Let's look at those figures. This prism has a pentagon for a base. And opposite the pentagon is the apex. That's where all of the sides come together in a point. The other two prisms also have bases. That's a rectangle, and there's the apex opposite. And then here's the base, it's a triangle, and there's the apex opposite. Finally, just like prisms, pyramids, actually not just like prisms, excuse me, pyramids have triangular lateral faces. So prisms had rectangles on the side faces were rectangles, and the pyramids have triangles for the side faces. And that makes sense because when you put a bunch of triangles together, they come together in a point or an apex. Now finally, just like prisms, we name pyramids according to their base. So let's go ahead and write the names for these. This one up top is a rectangular pyramid. because it has a rectangle for a base. Here is a triangular pyramid because it has a triangle for a base. And here is a hexagonal pyramid. Nope, not a hexagonal. It's a pentagonal pyramid because the base has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. It's a pentagon. Okay, before you're done, go ahead and look at the 3 figures below. Identify them. What are they? Are they prisms or pyramids? Or are they, and then what is their specific name? Pause the video and identify them, and then check your answers with me. Okay, so this is definitely a prism. It has rectangular sides. It has 2 congruent bases. And those bases have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides. So this is an octagonal prism. This is definitely a pyramid. It has 1 base, has an apex, and it has triangular sides. And this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is a pentagonal pyramid because its base is a pentagon. And finally, even though this looks like it has a point up here, it's not a pyramid. That's because you can see that it has 2 parallel triangles as bases. It's just a prism on its side. It is a triangular prism.